We heard from a lot of people that they were concerned about knowing what was going on the river. They weren't able to get to some of the other forums that have been held. So we decided we would try to get together and bring one right to Tarrytown, right in view of the Tappan Zee Bridge. The event this evening is being co-hosted by the Hudson River Assemblymembers. To my right is Sandra Galiff, who represents the Hudson River Shore from Ossining North. To her right is Shelley Mayer, who represents the Hudson River Shore in the city of Yonkers. We expect to be joined by Gary Pretlow. To her right, Gary represents the rest of the Yonkers shoreline. To my left, we have Ellen Jaffe, who represents the Hudson River Shore West. Ken Zabrowski, her colleague on the Hudson Shore West, was not able to join us this evening, but he did send his representative, Chris Bresnan, in the front row. And just north of Ken is Assemblyman James Skoufis, who also wasn't able to join us, but Dustin Hausner from his office is here representing him. So we have all 7 assembly members who represent the Hudson River represented. I just want to welcome everyone and give each one of my colleagues a chance to say something and say hello.
Hi, everyone. It's terrific to be here. I'm Sandy Galiff, and I do represent Scarborough and Briarcliff and Ossining up north. And I'm here to really have a better discussion about what's happening along our shores, particularly in the Tappan Zee Bridge area. And I'd like to thank all of you personally for those who supported our boat safety requirement in the future for our boaters. And I thank you very much for that support. We got the bill passed, the governor signed it, and that will be, terrific as we go forward. Anyway, I'm just here to listen and learn more about the facts from all of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being here, for joining us, and to have this important dialogue. You know, we have many of our businesses, small businesses, our boater businesses that are definitely will be impacted, and already there is some sense that they are being impacted because of the fear and the concern about safety on the waters. So it's important that we have this discussion, this dialogue, to assure that we have provided the safety measures and assure our community that is in place. So thank you all for being here. I look forward to this important conversation.
Shelley?
Thank you all for being here. Thank you particularly to my Yonkers friends who are here. I see some of you. I look forward to hearing and learning more. I have a particular concern about non-motorized craft, particularly kayaks and canoes that come out of Yonkers and throughout the shoreline. And I look forward to understanding how we can make sure that information, as it changes, is communicated to all those, and probably thousands, who actually do boat on the Hudson River. So thank you for this opportunity. I look forward to learning and talking more.
Frank, you want to go next?
Yeah, my name's Frank Bergman. I'm president of Hudson River Boat and Yacht Club Association. We're 33 boat clubs between Poughkeepsie and Yonkers, and between Marlborough and North Jersey. I represent about between 3,000 and 5,000 members, depending on how you count. Safety is very important to boating in general, and to my clubs in particular. We do a lot of safety training. I think Sandy's bill that went through recently for education of boaters is very important. But I think in the long term, boating association members sort of know the rules of the road. I think it's important to get it out to the other people and to make them safe around Tappan Zee Bridge and other things on the Hudson River. Thank you.
Gabe?
Hi, my name is Gabe Calabianchi. I'm the president of the Hudson Valley Marine Trades Association, and we are a group of about 30 members from the Tappan Zee Bridge to as far up as Albany. And basically, we are the marine industry businesses along the river. And I'm here, and I thank you for inviting me. I'm here because I'd like to support the Coast Guard, the law enforcement, the Tappan Zee Bridge, the contractors, and the boaters, because I really think that in a venue like this, we can all come up with pretty sound conclusions and solutions to anything that comes up, because I think right here we have a culmination of the people that are really going to be able to get this done. And in turn, it'll make the boating safer, it'll make the community prosper, and I feel that it'll bring a lot of outside business in here just from the construction of the actual bridge. So thank you.
I'd now like to turn everything over to Brian Conybeare, who's the special advisor to the governor on this bridge project. Brian will introduce the rest of the panelists this evening.
Is Jeff Yunker. He's with the U.S. Coast Guard Waterways Management Division, so we appreciate your being here. To my left is John Hilgeman. He is with the New York State Thruway Authority. He is the safety manager for the project, for us, for the state. To his left is Carla Julian. She is the public outreach coordinator for Tappan Zee Constructors. And to her left is Ro DiNardo with Tappan Zee Constructors. He oversees the water work that is going on out there right now, and he knows every vessel that's out there and every piece of equipment very well. So we'd also like to thank the law enforcement agencies that have joined us this evening, including Westchester County's Marine Unit and the Rockland County Marine Unit as well. Thank you very much for being here, and all the others. What I'd like to do is just give you a little bit of an overview as to what's going on out there on the river right now before turning it over to the Coast Guard for their portion. But as you know, especially if you live here in Tarrytown or just on the other side, or you use the Tappan Zee Bridge, we're building a new one. This project is now underway after more than a decade of really kind of dysfunction and discussion. Construction is finally underway. Tappan Zee Constructors, that's the name of the firm that these folks represent. Their contract has been approved and work is underway. You can see the equipment out there, and I'll show you some of that in just a moment. But this was really a long process. About $88 million taxpayer dollars was spent on discussing what to do about the Tappan Zee Bridge when this first started way back in 1999. Hundreds of meetings were held. 150 different concepts were discussed. You know, should we replace the bridge? Should we rehab the old bridge? Should you build a tunnel, two bridges, rail, buses? You know, all those questions were out there, but nothing really got off the drawing board. And then Governor Cuomo, when he came into office, said it's time to replace this bridge. We have to replace this bridge. And he threw his political support behind it. And things really started to pick up speed in October of 2011 when he went to the Obama administration and asked to put this project on what's called the fast track. Basically, 13 different major infrastructure projects around the country were placed on an expedited review process. And a process that can often take 6 to 7 years was done in just over a year. It really was a remarkable process. All the agencies were involved, more than a dozen state and federal agencies, including the Coast Guard, and lots of others. And no corners were cut. All the work was done. It was just done in coordination and working together and holding weekly meetings and daily briefings. Design Build Law was signed by the governor in December of 2011. This is the first major design build contract in New York State history. Tappan Zee Constructors is the design builder. Did I not even open that? You guys can't even see the presentation I'm creating? Thanks, Andy. You could have done that about 5 minutes ago.
Hey, Brian, just one other thing. Can we just remind anybody who is going to be talking, use the microphones?
Okay.
The acoustics in the room don't work real well unless you're up close to the microphone.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Assemblyman, and thank you, Andy, for doing that. Meanwhile, back at the presentation you didn't see, a draft environmental impact statement was published in January of 2012. A project labor agreement was reached in June of 2012 with about 24 union locals in Westchester, Rockland, and the New York City area. The bridge proposals, 3 of them were submitted in July of 2012, just over a year ago. They went through a very thorough vetting process. The final environmental impact statement was approved in September of last year. A mass transit task force was created in December of 2012, and that task force right now, they've been meeting for about 10 months, and they're getting ready to recommend short, medium, and long-term transit solutions for the bridge and the bi-county region on either side, Westchester and Rockland County. Ellen Jaffe sits on that task force as well, so thank you for your participation in that. The Thruway Authority Board voted to approve Tappan Zee Constructors' contract in December. of 2012, later in the month, and notice to proceed was issued in January. January 18th was the day that Tappan Zee Constructors was officially hired for this project. That was the day that they started getting paid, basically. And construction on the new New York Bridge has since got underway, as you can see out on the river. What's going on out there? One of the main projects that's going on right now are 2 temporary trestles, one right off the Westchester shoreline here in Tarrytown and one off the Rockland shoreline. These are long work platforms, 1,000 to 1,200 feet long, that will allow the Tappan Zee Constructors team to build the new bridge. Basically, it is a work platform that they'll put cranes and other heavy equipment on to build the actual bridge off of. And these work trestles are helping to protect the Hudson River bottom. It reduces the amount of dredging needed. Instead of going in there and dredging out that 1,000 to 1,200 feet, they're building these work trestles, and that is better for the Hudson River bottom. Pile driving, test piling began in July. The goal was to take a look at what's underneath the Hudson River and where the piles will hit bedrock, and will it hold up a bridge for 100 years, because we're trying to build a bridge that will last a minimum of a century before it needs any major structural repairs. And then in the middle of this month, on October 16th, installation began of the main span's permanent pilings. They shifted on the main span from temporary test pilings to actual permanent pilings that will hold up the new bridge. So things have taken a turn over the last couple of weeks. And we're using noise attenuation shrouds, both, if you can see, that is an impact pile driver, that thing that looks like a white and red rocket. The black area right between the white and the red is a noise shroud. It literally is lowered over it to keep the noise from the pile driving lower. It defeats the noise, encapsulates the noise. They also have underwater noise curtains. They're actually bubble curtains that trap the noise underwater so it doesn't harm the fish, in particular the endangered sturgeon out there. Dredging got underway as of August 1st, and it ends tomorrow night at midnight. Am I correct on that? Tomorrow night at midnight. They have a 3-month window for dredging operations. They've been doing it around the clock. And again, the idea is to protect the Atlantic and short-nosed sturgeon and their spawning and migration patterns. So they were limited to just a 3-month dredging window. There are marine biologists who are independent, certified by the National Marine Fisheries Service out there watching the dredge process. Every single load that is lifted and put into a dredge barge is checked to see if any sturgeon get trapped in there. None have. We've gone 3 months and they haven't gotten a single one in the dredge bucket. And those are what are called closed clamshell buckets that actually try to keep the material from the Hudson River bottom inside it as it gets lifted and put into the barge, so it isn't stirring up too much sediment in the water. The boater safety information, the reason you are all here. Right now, there's about 4 dozen Tappan Zee Constructors vessels on the Hudson River in the area of the Tappan Zee Bridge. But at the peak of construction, in about a year to a year and a half, that number could double to about 100 different vessels. So if you think it's busy out there now, and it is, it's going to get even busier. And that's why this type of forum is so important for all boaters to be aware of what's going on out there. There are crew boats, small little silver boats that take guys to and from various barges, tugboats, barges, barge-mounted cranes, temporary fixed platforms, and they move around. That's part of the difficulty. This is an active construction zone, and it will be for the next 4.5 years to 5 years. The main channel under the Tappan Zee Bridge remains open unless the Coast Guard notifies you otherwise, and the Coast Guard puts out its weekly notice to mariners. We take that information and post it on our website to make it even more accessible. We're also excerpting the parts that deal specifically with the Tappan Zee Bridge and the Hudson River in this area to make it easier for folks to find. The Coast Guard did establish a regulated navigation area that Lieutenant Commander Leosi will go into around the construction site. It's 300 feet north, 300 yards north and 200 yards south of the existing Tappan Zee Bridge from shore to shore, Rockland to Westchester, and it allows the Coast Guard to limit, or even if they have to, prohibit marine traffic in the area if necessary. I'll leave that to the Coast Guard to get into the details. Here are the approved mooring locations that the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has approved in consultation with the Coast Guard. Those are where Tappan Zee Constructors, those little anchors you see there, are where they are mooring barges overnight. There are often things moorings tied off on these mooring locations. There are also other areas out there where equipment is out overnight, but those are the 4 approved mooring locations right now. And according to the Coast Guard notice to mariners, you should stay 1,000 feet away from those mooring locations. Everyone, all mariners, recreational, professional, are advised to transit the main channel, reduce wake, and use extreme caution in the area near the Tappan Zee Bridge, and pay particular attention to vessel movement and all the future Coast Guard notices. One thing that has just happened in the last couple weeks is the lighting has changed. The navigation channel is 600 feet wide. It always has been, but the lights were actually on the piers, the main span piers of the bridge, demarking the main channel. That was about 900 feet wide. The channel's technically 600 feet wide, but there was nothing to put the lights on. So what they've done, because Tappan Zee Constructors is now putting in new main span pilings near the existing main spans, is they've made it more clearly marked what the actual navigation channel is. So up on the existing bridge, you'll see sets of red lights on the outer edge of the 600-foot navigation channel and green lights right in the middle. So be aware of that change and use the main channel at all times if you can. A high-level construction schedule for you. They started in March. The first boats got out on the river doing test borings, investigations into the Hudson River bottom to see what was down there, test the soil. They started establishing staging areas in March. In July, as I mentioned, the test pile driving began. August, the dredging began. It is almost over, about 24 more hours, a little over that. This month, the main span permanent piles started going in, and then there's about a 3-year gap there where Roe and his team have a whole lot of work to do to get the first new bridge open, and that will happen in 2016, 2018. The entire project should be complete. Why did we pick Tappan Zee Constructors to do this project? They had the best proposal price for toll payers. It's $3.142 billion. It's a lot of money, no question about that. But the other 2 bidders came in at $3.99 and $4.06 billion. And the original federal highway estimate for this project was between $5.6 and $5.9 billion. So that design-build law created some competition that got us a better price in the end. They had the shortest construction calendar at 5 years, 2.5 months. The other 2 bidders were 5 years, 11, and 5 years, 11.5 months. They had the least amount of dredging involved at 951,000 cubic yards. There will be some more dredging next summer, August to November as well, not nearly as much as this summer. The new bridge will reduce traffic congestion with 8 general traffic lanes, 4 breakdown and emergency lanes, easy pass upgrades, and express bus lanes. It's going to include a bike and pedestrian path. It's built ready for future bus rapid transit and rail. It has more than $300 million in extra structural load capacity so that you could put Metro North trains on it, or light rail, and or bus rapid transit. And the total project cost is about $3.9 billion to build this bridge. That's the Tappan Zee Constructors contract, along with owner's oversight costs. We've had to hire an owner's engineer to make sure we're getting what we're paying for, and go out and check the steel manufacturers and check concrete factories and things like that. We also have other ancillary costs that are rolled in there from the state side. Who is Tappan Zee Constructors? They're a team, a consortium of both bridge designers and builders. Fluor is one of the largest construction companies in the world. Granite Construction has its Northeast headquarters right here in Tarrytown. They've been around a very long time here. American Bridge and Trailer Brothers, those are the 4 main builders. The designers, the lead designer is HDR. They're doing a lot of the design work at their offices in Pearl River and their new offices here in Tarrytown as well. HDR is supported by Buckland and Taylor Bridge Engineering, URS, and GZA. GZA was the team that got out there and did some of the really early work, the test borings and sonar mapping of the Hudson River bottom and things like that. Where will the new bridge go? You guys probably all know this, but it goes just north of the existing Tappan Zee Bridge. We're trying to utilize the existing highway. We do not want to move the highway. That is a very expensive proposition, more than even building the bridge. And we want to minimize the impact on the Tarrytown and South Nyack and Piermont Grandview communities. We're going to build both bridges. I shouldn't say we, they are going to build both bridges just north of the span, the existing span, about 200 feet north, and build them toward the shoreline, connect the new northern span in about 3 years, and then all traffic will be shifted off the old bridge onto the new northern span temporarily. The landings of the old bridge will be torn down, and the pre-built southern span will be connected basically right where the existing bridge sits. That way you'll never be without a Tappan Zee Bridge. Here's a view of the Rockland landing. The two gray stripes are the new bridges, the twin spans. The red, pinkish red line is the existing bridge. And here's a view of the Westchester landing, similar outlook. The red is the existing bridge, and the two kind of gray stripes are the new bridge. We want as much public input as we can get. We appreciate your being here. If you have questions or comments, we welcome them tonight. We want to hear your ideas, but you can also email us at newyorkbridge.com. You can sign up for construction alerts, which I highly recommend. It takes 10 seconds. You put in your name and your email address, and all the information will be sent to you. Right now, we're putting out weekly project updates, sometimes bi-weekly, but that will ramp up as this project continues to ramp up. You could get daily messages about what's going on out there, lane closures, traffic, anything like that. All our boater safety information is posted there. You can search all documents. We have a construction hotline, 855-TZ Bridge. I'm the guy who responds to all the phone calls and emails. It's 24/7. Tappan Zee Constructors has 1 hour to respond to things like noise issues if they're actually over the decibel level limits, because there are decibel limits for all the activities that go on. If they don't respond, which has not happened yet, and we certainly don't expect it to, our project manager who works for the Thruway Authority can stop all construction if necessary. We're also on Twitter at New York Bridge, and I would assume that our team is tweeting this event this evening as well. But that's the presentation that I wanted to give, to kind of give you the high-level overview about what's going on. And I'm going to turn it over now to Lieutenant Commander Donna Leosi to talk about some of the specifics. And and Assemblyman Gary Pretlow has joined us, sir. How are you?
How are you?
Come on up. Would you like to say a few words before we go to the Coast Guard? All right.
I'm here to learn. I take the bridge, I have issues, but anyway.
Traffic-related issues, we're trying to solve that for you.
I hope so.
So Lieutenant Commander Leosi, the
Brian,
floor is
before
yours.
we do that,
Yeah.
we also, Susan Spear is here from Senator Gillibrand's office.
Oh, okay, excellent. Hi, Susan. Anybody else? No? All right. The floor is yours, ma'am.
All right. Well, I just want to thank you for our poor partners for the invitation to attend this roundtable meeting and to discuss safe boat practices and the regulated navigation area. With me is...
Would you please use the microphone, please?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
With me is Mr. Jeff Juncker. Mr. Jeff Juncker is from the Waterways Management Division in Sector New York. I am the division chief. He's been at the Waterways Division for 17 years. So he really has a whole lot of information on processes. The first thing I'd like to talk about is my main purpose here is to basically lower the level of abstraction. I'd like to just talk about basic terms, and that is, what is a regulated navigation area? How does that differ from a security area, and how does that differ from safety zones? Thank you. So a regulated navigation area, we have a water area and we have defined boundaries, and we are going to be regulating vessel navigation in that area. Specifically, in this case, we have, there's 300 yards north and 200 yards south of the Tappan Zee Bridge. So we brought a chart. You can see exactly where that is on the chart. What exactly are we navigating? The vessels, basically there's going to be no wake speed, there's going to be a slow no wake, and the speed limit, you cannot attain speeds over 5 knots. That's what we are regulating. Now there's also a security zone. The security zone is around all of the bridge's abutments and piers, and that's a 25-yard area. So for a security zone, we are protecting what's within the security. So that is the bridge. Since 9/11 and before that, all of the bridges basically have security zones. So the difference is, security zones, we're protecting what's in. Regulated navigation area, we're regulating the vessels navigating the area. And a safety zone, we're protecting the people from that specific area. We don't want anyone going 1,000 feet from these mooring buoys. Okay, so that's basically that's the navigation area. That's what we're making sure that everybody's safe. Now, it's an advisory, okay? This is not a security zone. So we're advising people that it's up to you. It's your responsibility to be careful. I mean, you need to know the rules of the road once you get underway. I mean, you wouldn't play cards without knowing the rules. This is really important. You have to know the rules of the road. There's a certain amount of seamanship that is required. You're not blindly going to go out there. The rules of the road also apply to kayakers, non-motorized boats, anything. If you look at the definitions, a vessel is any watercraft that's maneuverable. So these apply to you. It's really quite basic. Okay, so when I was looking through how to simplify these rules of the road, I was asked to do that. It's kind of a difficult thing to do. These rules were written last century. And you're asking me to simplify them. And basically, it's a compilation of the Boating Act of 1940, Western River rules, pilot rules. They were all put together, the legislation, in 1972, then in 1980 they were revised. Some of the basic tenets of the rules are keep a lookout at all times. So you can't get on a boat and go down to the galley and just think everything's going to be fine. There has to be a constant lookout. Another tenet is, and when you're reading them, the definitions, what kind of screams at you is, when you're looking at another vessel, what is that vessel maneuverable? Is it difficult for them to maneuver? And when you're out there and you're looking out there at all the vessels, that's what you have to be asking yourself. And in this situation, there's going to be a lot of different vessels out there that, because of their servicing, and their movement is going to be restricted. And in the definitions, it specifically tells you all of these circumstances where there are specific, a vessel engaged in replenishment of transferring persons, provisions, or cargo while underway. Well, that's going to be one of the situations here. That vessel is going to be restricted, vessel restricted in their ability to maneuver. A vessel engaged in dredging, surveying, or water or underwater operation, that's another situation. A vessel engaged in towing operations, such as severely restricts the towing vessel and her tow and their ability to deviate from their course. That's yet another situation. So that's when you see that happening, when you have your lookout and you're seeing those situations, you need to prepare for them. And the three rules here, rule number 13 is, and I'm not going to go through each rule here, but I'll tell you, rule number 13 is overtaking. You need to know how to properly do that. If there's a head-on or a possible head-on, you need to know what actions to take, and it's all in here. And if there's a crossing situation, you need to know what's proper to do that. There's also signals, and there's lights. I mean, there's ways that again, you're not going to play cards without knowing the rules. You're not going to get in the boat without knowing these rules. It's just, it's crazy. Oh, yeah. And I was also asked to talk about displaying of lights on barges. You can find that in the rules are in 33 CFR 88.13. And basically the way the rules are written, it's when should these lights be displayed? And it's basically common sense, at night and in restricted visibility. Okay, so, and then and then the rules deal with location of barges. So if a barge is projecting into a buoyed or a restricted channel or narrow channel, they're going to require lights. Also, a location. Every barge, depending on how the barge is moored, if it's moored and it reduces the available navigable width of any channel to less than 80 meters, that barge is going to need lights. If the barge is moored in groups more than 2 barges wide or a maximum width of over 25 meters, that barge is going to require a light or lights. Every barge not moored parallel to the bank is going to require a light. And then it talks about the specific location of the light and the placement of the light. So basically, the lights are going to be placed on the edges of the barges, and also on anything that is protruding. For example, any barge that projects from a group formation shall be lighted on its outboard corners. Temporary floating aids to navigation, I was asked to talk about that, whether or not that's something that could be done. The answer is yes. All that needs to be done is an application needs to be made. There's a form that you fill out. Our district commander will review that form, but something to keep in mind, when these private aids to navigation are established, and if they're floating, they're not always going to be in the same situation, and there might be off station, so you should never just rely specifically on them.
Brian, if you don't mind, we'll let Gabe ask a question.
Sure, absolutely.
Lieutenant, actually, I do have a question. So you're referring to everybody needs to know the rules of the road. Well, unfortunately, every spring we have new boaters that will come out, and until the boating legislation comes into full effect where people are required to get their boating license, it's going to take some time. I guess my first question is, what is the Coast Guard? I understand that you're putting these regulations and these things together, but physically, a physical presence is the Coast Guard going to have out there?
Physical presence. We have patrols, we have auxiliary. We're not going to be there 24/7. We rely on local authorities to assist. We rely on the public to give us information. We are available. You can call us on, we have into our command, and we can send a boat, send a team if necessary. But other than doing our patrols, which are frequent, but there's not going to be someone there 24/7. I mean, we don't have the funding for that.
Well, that's actually, just to add to that is we're a big supporter of law enforcement being out in the river, especially in the evening. We've lobbied for that as an organization for many years. Quite frankly, I've lobbied to the commander of the Coast Guard to put more of a presence at night, because there is virtually no presence at night. And if we think that we're going to get through the next 5 years of this without a tragedy at night, we're just kidding ourselves. Quite frankly, as an organization, we've always felt that police presence or the presence of something, especially in this manner or magnitude, is pretty much going to ensure at least a larger portion of safety for boaters, because again, in April, when the season starts, there are completely new boaters that do not know the rules, no matter how much paperwork we give them. It's the nature of the business that I can go down the road and buy a boat and put it in the water and not know the rules as much as they can do. In a situation like this, and I spoke to Brian about it, I think, again, representing the businesses, I support any type of, and I know you don't have the funding, but I really think that there needs to be that presence wherever you get the money from, because it's only been a few months and there's been an accident. At least what I'm saying to you is that there has to be more of a presence, at least from the Coast Guard, and some more at night from the local law enforcement.
We are working with the law enforcement. There are MOUs with the law enforcement that can, and my understanding is they can enforce a lot of those federal rules if there's an MOU with them. But we are working within our constraints, and we do depend on the public to give us the information, and the auxiliary. But there's a large auxiliary presence here.
Certainly the Rockland Sheriff's Marine Unit and Westchester County Marine Unit have been out there, and both your agencies do have memorandums of agreement with the Coast Guard, correct? Yeah.
My concern basically is the fact that when I was out there at night, there are a couple of pylons that are in the water that are close to the barges that cannot be seen from one side. There, I noticed that there's a little green light on a couple of them, and that's it, but there's nothing the green light is on the side that's in the channel, but behind it, there is nothing. If a boater is coming from the west shore and going towards the east shore, they will not see that pylon. Something has to be put around that pylon so that it can be seen from every direction. That's one of my main concerns that I've seen so far as a problem, because it just can't be seen. And it's like 3 feet off the surface of the water. You get waves when there's a bit of a wind out there, and the waves are going to go over that pylon, and they're never going to see it. So more lighting has to be on those pylons that are sticking out from the ground. That's my main concern right there. Kevin, you have anything to say about it? Not yet? Okay.
Thank you very much. Most of them, from my understanding, have 4 lights on them, don't they, Ro? If there's like your test piles that stick up, you have 4 lights, so you're going all directions.
Yeah, I'm not sure when you went out, but we have been putting 4 lights on all those pylons so that you can see it from each direction.
I only saw one when I came from behind, and I said, what the heck is that sticking out? And then I came around and I said, oh my God, it only has one green little light, teeny green little light on that pylon that's sticking out. That's what was my main concern, that it needs to be lit a lot.
Thank you. We'll look into it. But generally, they have 4 of them, so you can see them from each direction.
That line on both north and south side, are there landmarks that boaters can mark as they transit this area to know, like Tarrytown Lighthouse? Now I'm approaching a no-speed zone. I only suggest this in your communications and sending this out, that boaters in this area frequently use landmarks to navigate. So if I know I'm near Tarrytown Boat Club or whatever, I know this area is a low-speed zone. So that may help educate boaters probably a lot, because they may not, even if there is a local navigation aid out there, they may not see it. And I think that would be very helpful. And I think that was the 2 biggest questions. And Brian, you had mentioned the lights on the bridge, the new lighting pattern on the bridge. Those are, again, defined as temporary navigation aids, so it's the Tappan Zee constructor's responsibility to maintain those lights. Is that the way I get it? And then these bridge barge pilings are the barge markings. You said 1,000 feet again with those. That doesn't go near the channel, does it? Does that intrude on the channel? 1,000 feet, so that probably doesn't go all the way to that. So that's not an issue, anybody having to hug the shoreline to the eastern shore, because this barge, these 2 barges here are close to the channel, so they're far enough. I'm just wondering if boaters would get caught up going too close to these 2 barges, or perhaps the one to the north, and you want people to stay away 1,000 feet. They just seem close to the channel, that's all. But maybe I'm just...
I think that's probably because that's a very small map.
Okay.
And the actual federal channel is at 600 feet, which is between the 2 main bridge piers.
Gotcha.
My understanding is the barges do swing, and they swing side to side, about 200 feet. How is that taken into consideration in terms of the safety of the boaters? Is there something that they can see as it moves? Is there some lighting that could help in terms of noting that?
Yeah, yes, the barges have to be lit at night, and I mean, that's why it's in the local notice to mariners, people are advised to stay 1,000 feet away because they are swinging with the tide around that mooring buoy.
So there is a notification that they need to stay a significant, I guess this is a question about that.
I've gone through at night when I've done night patrols, and when I try to stay right in the middle of the Tappan Zee Bridge channel, and you are pretty close to the barge that's on the north side.
Brian, can I ask a follow-up question on that?
Sure.
Has the Coast Guard confronted a situation similar to this in the past, where you had a very busy construction area with a lot of traffic going through? Has anybody developed a, kind of a textbook on how to respond to the types of concerns about setting up zones, setting up, temporary navigation aids and things like that? Is there something out there that we could look at to say it worked this way in the past somewhere else?
Well, that's one of our main missions is safety at sea, and we have a lot of dredging projects going on, and that's what we do. We set security zones, we set safety zones, and we have regulated navigation areas. Every project is very different, and every project has its own challenges. Yes, we do know how to do this.
When a boater who is a new boater does not see a chart that you have designated as an area that you should not be in, there's no way for them to see that. It's on paper. Is it not correct that your area that's in the navigating area?
That's true. It is on paper, but again, you don't operate in a vacuum. The community has to have information and get information out there. We put the information out there. We publish local notice to mariners. We have these proposed rulemakings. I mean, everything is we invite you to be part of the process. It's just the process in and of itself.
It's the nature of the beast of the boater. They never check the local notices to mariners. They just go, unfortunately. And when you have designated areas that are on the chart, and I teach this stuff to these boaters all the time, it goes over their head. They don't check. They don't even call it a chart, some of them. They call it a map, and it's really supposed to be a chart. It's not that difficult to possibly go a little, unless you can't afford it, because I know you're in sequester mode now still, there has to be some sort of designation in the water as to where they have to stay away from. But I don't know if it's part of the construction people that might have to put the permit in so that they can put the buoys in the water to just designate an area to stay out of it. That might help. That might help.
Well, that could be the channel markers. If any kind of channel markers can help them navigate that would probably be very helpful.
And also the 5 mile an hour no wake zones are very important.
Signage and buoys are under discussion right now. Oh, yes, ma'am.
Hi, Audrey Schneider, owner of Tappan Zee Marina. Piermont, I wonder if any of the Tappan Zee or any of the people on the committee have come to Piermont, because Piermont boaters, not just me, there's other marinas, must go towards the center of the bridge in order to pass through the bridge. So if you look at the shoreline of Piermont, the barge is right in the way. It's a diagonal. If you didn't know it was there, you didn't look, and the lights are a mile away, I guess they have to be visible. Well, Piermont's more than a mile away from that barge. So you set your course towards the center span, and someone did run into the barge at one point, unfortunately. I've seen what she's talking about, what can be done in San Diego Bay. The Navy is there, and they don't want you coming within 1,000 feet of their ships. They have these huge floating white, they must be 20 feet long, and maybe 4 feet high, and they have reflectors on them or flashers. And in between each buoy, or whatever they're called, is a chain. So you even come upon it by accident, you're going to hit this 4-foot-high buoy marker within the zone, so you cannot get near a ship. And I think where those barges are, because if you look by eyesight, yes, they're designated anchorage spots by the DEC or the Coast Guard. I always wondered, why are they along the channel on the way from the west shore to the center span? Why aren't they closer to the causeway where no boater is allowed to go? No boater is allowed to pass under the causeway part of the bridge. All boats must head for the center span. So I was wondering if that anchor spot could be changed. Is it possible it could be more towards the west instead of along the channel? The other thing is, I think I heard you say if you wanted some navigation aids, you apply. We would like from Piermont, I'm sure I speak for all boaters, I would like as a business owner, so all the boaters know exactly from Piermont which is the way they're supposed to go towards the center span, either by a flashing lit buoy or, there aren't that many that go out at night, I don't believe, but I've been told by seasoned boaters and people with radar who know the barges are there, looking on their radar, and then looking out to sight it, hard to sight. I've heard from my own sons who boat never at night, but at dusk and dawn, you can't see those barges because they're low slung barges. They're very low and black. So I am suggesting two things: very large buoy markers with the chains around it so that nobody can go within 1,000 feet of those barges at all. And if they did come by accident close to it, they'd hit a rubber buoy or a chain. They wouldn't hit the barge. It might be dangerous too, but at least if there's reflectors all the way around, it keeps boaters visibly away, because she's right about charts. The other thing is, as a business owner, I didn't get any notification to my business, nor did the mayor of Piermont give me anything about, do I want to say anything to Tappan Zee constructors about boating business. The first piece of mail I got ever was this meeting. And of course I've seen there are meetings, but in all my years of being in this business, I never thought a barge would be between the shore and the channel and the center span of the bridge. So that's my comments.
Can I ask a follow-up question to the Coast Guard? Do you ever assist actively in developing a plan? I understand that the Coast Guard is more of a reactive, that you take plans that come from, let's say, a private company to say yes or no. Do you have a unit that could actively look at the Tappan Zee area and say, aside from the normal rules that you have, we think you ought to do this, this, and this, so that you can have an input? As you just heard, this isn't even right next to the bridge, this is down a ways. Is there any way that the Coast Guard could get actively involved in the planning for this type of thing?
Yeah, we have a bridge department, and the bridge department issues permits, and they review all of the, they review the project in segments when it's provided, like every 3 months, and they review the safety aspects of it. So whether or not, if you're asking me, do we specifically develop the plan, I would say no. What we do is we say we review it for safety issues. Is that correct?
Is it possible for, just to think down the line, we started to have a conversation before, I'm hearing from some of the people in the audience, that they would like to see in the water demarcation of certain areas. Is it possible for us to have some conversations about that offline to see if we can develop a plan which would meet your requirements? Because I understand, I've done some boating, I've done some teaching of boating. You can't just put things all over the place because that makes it even worse. But is it possible for offline for you to have?
Yeah, I could tell you there is a process in place where if you want to establish private aids to navigation, that's something that we do on that's one of our missions. So yes, there is a process in place. Actually, I have a form here. It's a CG 2554 form. It says here that that this form only takes about an hour to fill out, and if it's completed, if it has everything completed, this gets sent in triplet to the district commander for review. So the answer is yes.
And just to be clear, Tappan Zee Constructors, the Thruway Authority, and the Coast Guard are already meeting with local law enforcement and discussing those possibilities. We hope to have, by next spring when boating season starts again, more defined signage out there on the river. The plan is in the works. We have to get Coast Guard sign-off, obviously, but this is not something that is being ignored. Those discussions are happening right now. We understand it. We've heard it from the public as well, and those discussions are happening.
Could I just follow up with that? By the way, Sue Donnelly, who's Austin Town Supervisor, is in the back of the room. One of the issues that was brought up by Gabe is new boaters. Is there any way that you could have information that is adopted about what to do and what not to do that might be provided to all of those places where boats are being sold, so that at least they can do that first warning? Now, that doesn't mean that everybody else doesn't need it, but especially somebody that's newly coming along line and maybe have some just available to hand out. I don't know whether that's a possibility.
Absolutely, and we actually have something that's under review right now. It's a one-page boater safety handout that we're trying to make sure has all the right information with the Coast Guard, with our team, and we hope to post that not only at boat sellers, but also at boat ramps, marinas, right, and even the, like the JFK Marina in Yonkers, where it's not a marina, it's not a business, but anybody can go put a boat in the water. We want to have signage posted there next spring as well. So we are working on those concepts right now. We obviously have to have the Coast Guard on board, but those discussions are happening, and there's something under review right now that we're trying to get out there.
I have a follow-up question on that. It may be what you're talking about, or maybe the local notice to mariners, but from what I understood from some people in Yonkers is that does not funnel down to the individual who may be a new boater who has not seen the description of the zones that are marked here, as well as the limitations on wake. Is there a way to make sure that these updates, particularly as you bring more vessels into the river, gets out to as many people who belong to these clubs, particularly new boaters, as possible?
We're doing that now and have been for months. We take the notice to mariners and excerpt all of the parts about the Tappan Zee Bridge and send it out to Frank Bergman and Gabe Capobianco, and they share it with all their membership. We've been doing that for months now,
Right.
and that's working, but we also need to find those folks who aren't members
Right.
of these boat clubs and yacht clubs, and that's part of the issue, is trying to spread that information. And that's why we're here. That's why we've spoken to a dozen or so boating groups over the past 6 months. We're trying to get the information out there. It's hard to go, I don't know, I guess door to door and say, you have to have this, but we're trying to spread the information as much as we can. We've put it on our website, and we send it out as wide and far as we can.
Brian, do you have any information as to what percentage of mariners are members of boat clubs or yacht clubs?
I don't. Frank, would you have any clue?
Like I said to you earlier, my problem is not the boat club members and whatever, it's the casual boater who brings a trailer and puts his boat in the water. And Gabe was mentioning new boaters as a problem. Those are the people you have to get to. We have, it's very difficult because, like fishing season, everybody comes out of the water or out of the woodwork to get on the water and to fish. And they're not boat club members usually. Gabe, you help?
And you'll get people from other states that are going to come in just for that, whether it's from Connecticut, whether it's New Jersey, Pennsylvania, even Lake George, and then the guys coming. I'd say about 40 to, I would say probably about 60% of the boaters out there either belong to some organization, the rest of it, or just either trailer customers or maybe just new boaters or boaters from out of state. So I think there's a lot of people that we're still not reaching.
Right, and you also have the Canadians transferring up and down. At this time of year, they're going south, and in the springtime coming north. Most of them, because they're out on the ocean and whatever, they look for the notice to mariners, but most boaters, very few read notice to mariners. You've been very helpful for our organization by sending that out to us, and we religiously send it out to our members, so we're very knowledgeable about it. That's been very helpful. But also, most boaters, you got to use your common sense. You can use your common sense mostly in the daytime because you can see what's happening out there and where you're supposed to be going. And if you don't have good boating sense, you really shouldn't be out there at night either. But there are those people that go out to a bar or go here or go there. In fact, Gabe mentioned about law enforcement in the evenings and stuff. I mean, almost almost all serious accidents happen at night. They don't happen during the day, because you can see what the heck is going on, you know? You know, I know budgets are constrained and all, but I agree with Gabe. We have to do something about making sure that law enforcement gets some extra money to, every now and then, stick somebody out there at night, and to make sure the front page of the paper is plastered with, hey, we caught this guy at night racing down the river or doing whatever, and maybe other people start to think about it. But I think gradually we're getting there, but, and like I said, your efforts are admirable. It really has helped us a great deal, and we've published it on our website, and we've published it on our Facebook page and stuff like that. So we're trying to get the word out, and those things go also to non-member clubs, because that's public information. It's just up to the individual voter to go look for it, and sometimes...
And that's obviously a challenge.
Yes, it is, very definitely.
As I understand our system, you're somewhat constricted as to what you could put out if it's not official. So I kind of lean back towards the Coast Guard to see if we can get a little bit of help to get some more stuff onto charts, for example, we were talking before. Is it possible, because a lot of mariners today, even the guys who are out for the weekend, will use an electronic device to look at a chart. Is it possible, for example, to get some of the quote permanent changes or even some of the temporary changes onto the official charts, so that somebody who's coming along, because those change constantly, right? Am I correct? Those can change constantly. So that somebody who's coming up from Long Island or whatever at least has a chance to see in advance what the scene is going to look like. And then perhaps Tappan Zee contractors can publish, advertise what it is that's on the official chart, so that they have a chance. They could put it on their website, they could put the chart on the website, they could advertise, they can go on the radio to tell people to go to a certain website to see what the chart looks like. Because until we get something official, I would guess everybody's reluctant to put it out. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, and I mean, the RNA positions, again, are published in the local notice to mariners that me and 3 other people read. And, I mean, we'll submit that chart corrections to NOAA. And again, you have to count on people downloading updates to
But
their
for example,
charts.
these zones,
Yeah.
are these on the latest charts yet?
No.
See, I mean, that alone might be helpful, because if you want people to stay away 1,000 feet, they're not being given notice before they even come into the area that they have to stay away 1,000 feet, because they don't even know they're there until they get there. So if we could work out some kind of a plan in the future where we can get some of this stuff into the charts, that might help a little. You know, we're not going to get everybody that way. We got to do some in-water stuff. But even just having stuff on paper in advance or online in advance, showing where the lights are, I would think that what about the new lights? Are they on the charts yet?
That's it? No, bridge lights are not generally put on charts, because it would just, everything would bleed into one blob, because they would appear to be so close together. Again, it goes back to the local notice to mariners. There is the drawing showing where the lights marking the federal channel
Some
are.
of this could be put into the official charts, whatever you guys think is necessary. But this way, people coming in from another area, you know, then the government has a chance to advertise that and to say, here's the new charts for the area, put them up on the website. But until they get something official from you, it's really hard for them to put something out.
But they can always take the info from the local notice to mariners and make their own chart corrections. We don't have to, we can't force people to update their charts.
Perhaps on the chart, you should say consult local, and have the website address on the chart that says, for this area, danger or whatever, and say, consult local advice to mariners or whatever. And that way, you know, you can't put all the information on the chart necessarily, but you can at least say hazardous area or something, you know, I don't know what words you might use, you know, in Coast Guard speak. but have something there saying consult.
Maybe in the media, the opportunity in the various media outlets, there could be a statement about reminding the mariners to look at the charts, to go to online, to note the changes. So, you know,
We send out our weekly press release to the media every Friday that includes the latest updates from the Coast Guard and links to our boater safety page. So we're trying, but the question is, does it reach everyone?
You know, maybe
Yeah.
we can encourage the announcements on the radio, local, as well as the larger area. So maybe that might be helpful, just alerting people.
Yeah. You want to say something?
Bob Walters from Yonkers. You know, we've talked a lot about power boaters, but the big population on the river more and more is kayakers and paddle sport boats. So I'm not sure if the kayakers would be recommended to use the main channel, because normally they would stay clear of that because of the commercial traffic. So is there a recommendation for paddle sport people, kayakers, to transit the bridge area? That would be my question.
Again, that regulated navigable area is, it's advisory. So it's basically whatever is safer for them. So it's just, it's an advisory, okay?
So, and lots of hands pop up. Go ahead, sir.
Good evening, Paul Capel with the Hudson River Pilots. We're the people that bring the great big ships up and down the river. I have a couple of questions. First of all, on the design parameters of the bridge, what is the vertical clearance going to be?
Exact same as the existing.
139 feet. And the horizontal clearance is going to be the same?
Bro, help me on that one.
I believe it's actually a little 1,200 feet, a little bit wider.
1,200 feet, so it'll be 200 feet wider. Question for the Coast Guard. Rule 26, the narrow channel rule. Will the Coast Guard declare that this particular area is the narrow channel rule? For the people that don't understand that, that says that a small vessel cannot impede the safe traffic of a deep draft vessel that cannot navigate safely outside the confines of the channel, almost verbatim. So will the Coast Guard define this as a narrow channel rule so that we have, you know, our problem is you have boaters coming across, you have all kinds of equipment. We kind of get blended in with the background. You see this big ship coming down, and all of a sudden these people are cutting out from behind pilings, they're cutting out from behind the abutments, and all of a sudden there's a sailboat in the middle of the bridge. We don't have the latitude to move around it very much. We're very limited in what we can do, especially in a confined area like that, and we have to share the river with everybody, but we want it to be safe.
We will most definitely review that comment.
Okay.
I'm sorry, we'll most definitely review that comment.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, Assemblyman Abinanti, you were asking a very good question. I just wanted to clarify about charts and how boaters use charts. Paper charts are going away. NOAA just announced they're not printing them anymore. They do have secondary providers that you can still get them from. However, most boaters either use electronic navigation one of two ways: a chart plotter, a physical chart plotter aboard their boat that has a chip that you buy, much like a library book that has all the necessary data, or a lot of folks use personal devices such as a cell phone. I mean, there's many chart applications there. The challenge, I think, what you may not be aware of is not everybody goes out and buys a new chip every year, especially for a large fixed unit. They're very expensive. They're several $100s. I believe it's a lot less for the personal iPhones and such like that. But it's on the boaters, you know, dime to go and update that. And then from personal experience, I will tell you, a lot of people don't update the larger units every year. That may be changing with the smaller units. So I don't know if, you know, putting these notices on the chart's a great recommendation. The question is, how are boaters going to get that information? And what Brian was talking about earlier, the signage up and down the river and the outreach he's working, you know, I tend to believe having a big sign, not a small sign, but a big sign at every kayak launch ramp, at every boat club, at every public launching ramp is going to do a lot more good to educate boaters that that's a sensitive area that they're going to be boating up through, and they better pay attention to what's going on. And I think that's a great idea.
The concern that I have is once you've alerted them and you've gotten their attention, how do we make sure they understand the details of what they're getting into? That's where I was going here, to make sure that at least those who want to look it up further, have somewhere they can go to look at it. Because I think there's two tasks here. One is to get their attention, and then the second one is to educate them. And that's why I've always looked to the Coast Guard and to NOAA to say, okay, they're the official last word as to what we have to do in that area. And let's face it, these guys, I'm not blaming them for it, because they're stuck they have to listen to what the Coast Guard says also. So while they can do some voluntary stuff, they're going to have their own chart makers if they're going to do the voluntary stuff. So I look to the Coast Guard and ask for their help in any way they can to give us something to put out. I mean, each one of the Assembly members, I'm sure, would be glad to put whatever it is that they want us to put on our websites and send out emails. The supervisor of Greenberg sends everybody an email 3 times a day, so we can get that out. But the question is, what do we have that's succinct so that people can look at and say, okay, this is going to tell me what I have to do out there.
We are trying to do that with our weekly notices that we send out, and I'm going to start sending them to all of you Assembly members as well to get them on your websites. But, you know, Gabe and Frank have been great partners in distributing that information, and there are links embedded in those documents that we send them, so that if we get someone's attention, they can even go get more information as well. So we are doing that, but I will take you up on that offer, and you all will get my weekly update starting 2 days from now, Friday. Somebody else in the back? Yes, sir. Let me get you the microphone. Just tell us your name, please.
Good evening. My name is Paul Okura. I'm from the United States Power Squadron. I would like to recommend 2 things. One is, in terms of disseminating this information, potentially I think we can approach the vessel examiners of the United States Coast Guard Auxiliary and also United States Power Squadron. We have vessel examiners who go to the boaters, and we actually board the boat, and so we have the opportunity to speak one-to-one. And so I think that is one way to disseminate the information directly to the boaters. The other recommendation is to go to the marine shops, because all boaters will inevitably buy things from marine stores, so I would recommend that too.
Can I have your business card, sir? Seriously. Do you have one on you? Anybody else, comments or questions? We have another lawmaker here.
Good evening, Brian. Good evening, Tom. Thank you for having this forum. Especially since there's so many really casual boaters that occasionally end up on the river. The more sources that disseminate information, the better, and certainly every elected in the valley, regardless of level of government, should get things to send out. All the villages and towns should, that border the river as well. I think that one simple message that everyone should probably have is that once you get to a certain point in the river at this point, there can be really dangerous things going on. You have to exercise additional caution, and there may be new advisories, and you have to be on the lookout before you enter. I think if everyone starts going out with that mindset, then the table is set for more specific information.
And we do, on my email list, we do have the village of Tarrytown, Nyack, South Nyack, Piermont, and Grandview, I know, but I can expand the list if anybody else wants to join. And Irving, you know what? Good point. Very good point. Did you have a question or comment?
Connie Kehoma, village trustee in Irvington. I was just thinking about the kayakers also, because the kayakers in Irvington are less at the traditional boat club. They actually now have kayak slots in our park. So getting to the recreation departments, I don't know if that's true of other villages, but in terms of getting the word out, I would say through the village with something in the headline that says something like boaters or kayaks or recreation department.
Thank you. Absolutely. Anybody else? Questions, comments?
Brian, I have one last comment. I know you have MOUs, you said, with the Westchester County Police Marine Unit and the Rockland Sheriff's Marine Unit. The police departments all along the waterfront that have marine units like Yonkers, are they integrated into this conversation? Are they knowledgeable? Or do they serve a function, or is it sort of taken up by the county marine units? Does anyone know?
You were directing that to the Coast Guard?
I don't know who knows the answer.
Probably to the county police, in both.
Mr. Luciano.
I wasn't putting anyone on the spot, I would just ask.
To the county police, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Lieutenant James Luciano with the Westchester County Police.
Thank you for having us. What I'll say is with the local jurisdictions that border both sides of the river, the county sheriffs or state police are the only ones that would have jurisdiction. Counties go out to the middle, like for our side, it'd be the east side of the river up to the middle would be Westchester County. Rockland County would be the middle of the river to the west side. Yonkers lacks jurisdiction to enforce anything outside their city limits, just like it's in with the criminal procedural law in the state of New York. You cannot supersede that. Federal law cannot do that. We do have a memorandum of agreement with the United States Coast Guard to assist them with enforcement of safety and security zones. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
May I follow up on that? You, before this forum, were telling me about a lot of the work that you've been doing with the contractors and with the Coast Guard. One of the things that we see, though, is that when there's an emergency, it's all hands on deck. So we have volunteer firemen in boats, we have police in boats. Is there an effort in the county yet to organize everybody and then to train everyone so that they know what to expect when they go out there?
One thing I'll say is, long before the Tappan Zee construction project has begun, we've been out there since 1999, I believe, in Rockland County. I don't know the origin of their Marine unit, but we've had various maritime safety and security incidents regarding rescues and accidents and some unforeseen events. So thank God that past history and bad events gave us operational experience to work together. We maintain an open dialogue. We do foresee conducting more training. We've been talking to our local fire departments in this district that cover this fire district on our side of the river. I cannot speak for Rockland. Working hand in hand with the Tappan Zee construction company since day one, before anything started, with their safety and security people, about drilling out there on their platforms in the, like I said, unlikely event, hopefully that anything further happens, that we won't be strange to us if we're on top of one of their platforms or barges to conduct a rescue or to aid someone that has been injured. It could be one of the workers or maybe a boater that come into contact with something. So yes, we've trained in the past for long before, and we're going to continue and actually work with the company as with local fire districts to enhance our capabilities.
So you're bringing the locals in on this as well, so they know what
Yes.
to, okay.
Correct.
Ro, would you like to say anything about Tappan Zee Constructors' outreach to all the departments? You guys just took them out on a tour of the site, didn't you?
Yeah, we've been working very closely with Westchester County Marine Unit, and we have contact with the Rockland County Marine Unit. Our safety department does a good job of conducting some drills, and we work closely with the Marine units. We are actually on the same channels as they are, and so we frequently monitor each other. And thank you for their help. They've actually been very good about monitoring the RNA zone and notifying us if people are in there, as well as our own people. So we've done a lot of training, and we want to thank them and Rockland County for their help. And we will continue to do that as the project continues.
Brian, another question to the Coast Guard, if I can. Usually the marine radios are used not to distribute information, but to communicate back and forth. Is there any way to use, knowing full well that today unfortunately a lot of boaters are not using marine radios, they're using cell phones now, is there any way to communicate through any of the marine radio channels in the Tappan Zee, that if you're in the Tappan Zee Bridge area, beware and check the latest notice to mariners or anything like that? Is there any way of using the radio for that purpose? What's it, Channel 16? Is that the hailing station?
Our normal process is we would issue a safety voice broadcast on long-range projects like that just until it's published in the local notice to mariners. And, I mean, and the same way with, we know the majority of people on the water don't read the local notice to mariners, we also know the majority of people on the water don't listen to safety broadcast.
But some people do. Is it possible to continue doing that in the future at more frequent interviews?
I mean, we can look into it.
If you could, yeah.
You have a question, ma'am?
Sometimes when you're riding along the thruway and or a major highway, there's a sign that says tune to channel whatever about information on the construction ahead. Is there, that's the kind of thing I think you're talking about.
Right.
That, and you could put something out like that, you know, if you're going to approach the Tappan Zee Bridge area, maybe before you are on the water, tune to a channel to see what's going on today, whether it be an FM channel or, you know, whatever. And you could broadcast the day's events and what to watch for. And that could be brought out. But I think the physical barrier of 1,000 feet of some physical barrier is going to keep that casual boater, oh, what's that out there? They'll see it. And I say, I'm not supposed to go near there. And I think you need more physical barriers around the anchorages spots, the permanent anchorages. Well, that's my thought.
Thank you. The notice to mariners that we take excerpts out of does have information about which radio channels are being monitored. In fact, I think it was the part about dredging. The notice has, I brought it here. It does say that they monitor a certain channel, and you can call at channel 13 and channel 16. Mariners are urged to use these channels if they have questions about going through as well. So channels 13 and 16 on the VHFM radio. That has they're always monitoring those channels, correct? TZC, what do you guys use? 16, 18?
We don't monitor, we monitor
18 and 19. Okay.
Coast Guard monitors 16. And is the other one 13 on the river? What do you guys?
That's ship-to-ship calling.
That's ship-to-ship,
Yes.
right.
Yes, correct.
So you monitor 16.
16,
So, but if the
21.
point is that if we can get the message out to people, and if you could then rebroadcast some kind of a notice every once in a while, again, you're not going to get everybody.
Yep.
But you can get some people.
I can look at
If you look into it.
Oh, yeah, we're going.
Thank you.
Yes.
I believe we have the Commodore of the Nyack Boat Club with us. How are you, sir?
Very good. All right, thank you. My name's Kieran Quinn. I'm Commodore of the Nyack Boat Club, and I will say that we disseminate the notices to mariners to all of our members in our the updates that apply to the river. And I think for many of the people who spoke here tonight, their assumptions about boating are naive and inconsistent with what really happens. It strikes me that the same sort of expectations you have on the water would be similar to those that you would have if you were walking in the Adirondack Park. There won't be signs, watch out for the cliff, ho, there's some snakes up ahead. There are hazards on the water, and prudent mariners keep their eyes peeled, keep a lookout, and respond to those things. When I approach the bridge, I look at that stuff and say, I don't understand what's going on down there. I shouldn't be there. If I understand it, if I can recognize what's going on, I know how to respond to it, I know how to avoid it, I can respond to it. But to think that I can blithely go across the Tappan Zee at 30 miles an hour in the dark, not having any idea what's in front of me, is utterly unrealistic. And I think it's unrealistic to think that the Coast Guard could take measures to protect every fool from himself. And the fact that boating is as safe as it is, I think sort of belies some of the comments that we've heard tonight about how imprudent boaters are. Because we go out, I've been a member of the Nyack Boat Club for 32 years. We had one fellow who had a heart attack while sailing. We've had some people who've had minor injuries on their own boats. I think in 32 years we've never had a boat collision. no less with any of the objects that you've put in the water, Brian. And so, I think that, there's an understanding of what happens on the water, and you respond to it. And if you don't, if you're buzzing around at night, there's logs in the water, there's all kinds of junk that you can hit, as well as barges. And I think that I'm repeating myself, and so I'll stop.
Thank you, Commodore. Well, I think we're getting down to it. We've heard some very good comments tonight, and I think certainly from the Thruway Authority and the Governor's Office, we're committed to making this site as safe as possible, as is Tappan Zee Constructors and our whole team. We appreciate everybody being here tonight, especially the law enforcement folks, those from the boat and yacht clubs, from the Hudson Valley Marine Trades, and all the assembly people. We're all on the same page. We all want the same thing. We want the Hudson River to be the wonderful asset that it is. We want people to be able to use it, and we want it to be safe. So let's continue to work together. I'm going to keep trying to spread the word. I would like to ask all of your assistance in doing that. I want your business card as well as soon as this is over. But let's try to make this Hudson River as safe and fun as we can, while understanding, as the Commodore just said, it is a major construction zone and it's very busy. People have to be careful out there. Thank you very much.
I want to thank you for very much for coming and helping us make this a very informative evening. Can I just make one comment? I want to make sure that people understand that there were a lot of comments coming from different places. I just want to caution everyone, take your advice from the experts. Don't take your advice from the questions that were asked. Take them from the answers that were given by the Coast Guard, because they're the guys. Just because somebody asks a question doesn't mean that you follow the advice implied in the question. It's the answer from the Coast Guard that tells you what really has to be done. But thank you again for bringing everybody for us. It was a very informative evening. I want to thank my colleagues for coming up to Tarrytown and joining us.
Thank you, sir.